Morning. You can't see me. Hopefully you can hear me. And now you can see me. I've done about 20-25 practices on this now on my phone with the laptop presentation. And why am I doing it? Okay. Well, my name is Ross McWilliam, and I'm doing this because I passionately believe people always need a bit of support in their life, myself included. And to do this, I'm creating some presentations, not the most high spec, but I'm doing them anyway because that's the personality I have. And I'll also complement this with some webinars. So this is how it's going to go. If you like what you see, send me an email, ross@rossmacwilliam.com. I'll add you onto what's called my broadcast lists, and I'll send you an email. We're looking today at, we call it Corona Mindset. It's the second one I've done. And we're looking at the lockdown mentality. And here it's talking about fears and opportunities. And I think sometimes you can make life very simple for yourself, and it is about choices. You know, in today's world, at this particular moment in time and this particular day on March 24th, a lot of people are feeling like this. They're feeling down, depressed. And if they're feeling down, depressed as adults, the children are more likely going to feel down, depressed. We model behaviour. And it's very interesting that I saw stuff on LinkedIn through a good friend of mine, Mike Finnegan. He talks about modelling the leader you want to be so people can follow you. I think it's really good point that, and it's something that I've inadvertently done all my life without knowing it. But now's a chance to model behaviour. So we might be feeling certain feelings inside, but we're trying to model the good stuff that people can take around from us and develop their own basis to get through this crisis. Let's just start off with one thing. If we don't look after ourselves, then we can't look after any other people. And it's like the oxygen mask on a plane. You don't put it on your child first, you put it on yourself first, so you're safe, you can breathe, and then you can help other people. And I think it's a good sort of visual description of what we need to do today and in the weeks and months moving forward. We've got to look after ourselves first, be aware of our emotions and feelings, and therefore then our actions might be more positive than negative or fearful. And by doing that, we can help other people. And life is about ups and downs, isn't it? It's never happy clappy 24/7, as I say. There's things that will come along and trip us up. The question is, can we get back up again and reach higher? So you might have something called melancholy moments where you go down and then something happens that you recover, you feel good, and you might get down again. But as long as that level is going upwards on a curve, on a crescendo like that, then that's a good thing. When it goes down and down and down, that's when we might have some more problems and challenges to face. So life is about ups and downs. At the moment, it's about our health. It's about the health of other people. It's about our financial well-being. It's about our future career job prospects. You couldn't put much more into it than that. And you know, ultimately people will die after this, and people are dying. So it's not something we can take lightly, but it's all about, the words I'll say a few times today, is about risk management, being aware, trying to be more positive than negative, and as I said at the start, modelling behaviours. That's the content of today. And sometimes in life we do get stressed out, okay? It's natural. Sometimes we do get lonely, sometimes we do get confused, and sometimes we do get sad. Perhaps all in the space of a few short minutes, or certainly in a day at times. Most people, these feelings will come around now and again. But at this moment, it's not a natural moment. It's something that's been forced upon us, so you might get a fluctuation very rapidly of these emotions, of being confused, of being lonely, of being bored, of being really stressed out. Accept it. But we're going to challenge that. We're going to challenge it at source. And it's an interesting slide, this. I don't know if you can see this particularly well. We do not fear the unknown. We think we know about the unknown. So we don't know what it is, but we fear it. And we fear it, the unknown. And it grows and it grows and it grows. So that's something I want to really address today in this session. Psychologists and cognitive behavioural psychologists use this model quite a lot. We think a certain way, then we feel a certain way, or emotions, then we act a certain way. To give you two very extreme examples, if I was going down the motorway in my car, and then there's a traffic accident and I've got to stop and I've got to wait in traffic, I could get angry, I could get out of the car, I could start abusing people and doing stuff because my behaviours are not that good, but they've been brought on by poor emotions, brought about by impatient, here we have the thoughts of wanting to get through the traffic jam. I could easily have the same scenario where the traffic stops. I can think, oh my goodness, it stopped. Hey, it might be an opportunity to ring my boss up and have a chat. So I don't feel nervous or angry, I feel relieved. And that relief helps me make the right choice to ring my boss up, the behaviour. It's an interesting connection. So today I'm going to look at fear and positivity, fear versus positivity. And is it opportunity? It's a weird thing to say, isn't it? Is there an opportunity at the moment? Yeah, let's have a look. Now, in our minds, in our brains more precisely, we've got 100 billion neurons. And these are creating pathways all the time. And sometimes when we don't get things right, the pathways are being laid down, like the surface of a road, the part of the road surface that's ready, the foundation, before the tarmac goes on the top. So we might have got things right, but the foundations are being created, 100 billion neurons. And the more times we're challenging ourselves, looking for positive outcomes, the more these neurons have been laid down. And guess what? The opposite is true as well. The more times we think we can't do something, or we don't do something, or something goes bad, the more we shut these roads down. So it's difficult for us to actually process information in the right way to get better resolutions. And what happens, that's a mechanical way. In a chemical way, we've got two chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol. And adrenaline, very briefly, fight or flight or freeze, and it helps us perform in the world, and it's necessary. What isn't nice and necessary is when we get a lot of cortisol, the stress hormone, that comes along and it's ready to help this fight, but if this cortisol is being produced regularly, consistently, day in, day out, hour in, hour out, it becomes a problem for our bodies, and ultimately it poisons our bodies. In the short term, it makes us react to something that's in front of us that may not be a rational fear. And it's something we've given it meaning and importance when there may be no meaning and importance there. Cortisol is good, but it can run away with us really fast. And if we're stressed all the time, it will wear us out, we'll make bad decisions, we'll live, ultimately, an unfulfilled life. We want to avoid that situation. Now, on this here, I can't tell you how to feel. We talked about thoughts, emotions and behaviours, and we just talked about cortisol and adrenaline being okay, but too much cortisol is not good for you. But what I'm going to say to you is this: when you find yourself in this situation we're in at the moment, the lockdown, if you can't be positive and see the opportunities, just be curious, like a child looking over a fence. Just be curious. That'll keep these pathways open, and we might be laying down the foundations when we actually really don't know, think we are, but we could be, because we're being curious about what the outcome could be. I'm not going to spend any significant method of time now on resilience, which is the next part of it, but rather than say resilience, how about failing forward? Let's be curious, and if something doesn't work out, okay, hopefully we can learn something from that and put it into place next time. A good example might be playing with this camera today and the presentation. Have I got the right slides on? Is the text too small? Is the volume, is the lighting okay? Well, you know, I'm curious. So I'm having a go at this and trying it out and finding it out. And I'll fail better tomorrow. And I want you to do the same with your daily lives about something doesn't go quite right for you. Can you feel better at it tomorrow? And if you model that behaviour yourself, your children, your partners will pick up on that. It's a great quality. I'm going to start off now with something just to catch us in the moment. It's very powerful for the last couple of years especially, but really a lot of people would say it's been around for thousands of years. The art of mindfulness, thinking and being in the moment. Ideally it'd be nice to have a chocolate to do this with. On my future webinars I'm going to be talking about exercise and diet, so I don't want to overplay the importance of chocolate, but now and again a little treat is good. Let's imagine we've got some chocolate now. And what you want to do in this process is just think about this chocolate. So let's go through a few steps just to ground us, get us ready for a bit more learning. So imagine you have a chocolate now and you just look at the chocolate. If a negative thought or an extraneous thought comes in your brain, just push it away, focus back on the chocolate. What does the chocolate look like? What colour's the wrapper? What noise does the wrapper make when you touch it? Take the chocolate out of the wrapper and feel the chocolate. What's its texture like? What's its surface like? What's its temperature like? Smell the chocolate. Chocolate's got 300 smells, you know. Put the chocolate in your mouth, but don't chew it, just put it in your mouth. What does it feel like? What are you feeling? Chew the chocolate, but don't swallow it. Should be a range of emotions coming out now. Just focus on the chewing of the chocolate and what's happening. And then swallow the chocolate. Again, think about what's happening. And that was about 40 seconds. If you can do this for about a minute on your own at some point, it's a great way to start the day. Or when some things aren't going quite right for you, or you just want a little break, do the chocolate exercise. Mindfulness chocolate. Great way of doing something. Now, let's assume then that we've got in a nice state, we're nice and chilled, we want to see the opportunities, we want to be curious. The first thing about calming the adrenaline and the cortisol, for me, is being aware of how we feel. And some people do this with, on this screen here, with pebbles, putting all the feelings down and picking up a pebble, how they feel at the moment. And it's a great way just to step outside yourself, because you're not in the fight, and this is how I feel. Sometimes when I'm thinking about going somewhere to travel to London, I might be a bit agitated. I'm looking forward to it, excuse me, but it's one of those things that if I don't watch it, the agitation can become a bit of a nervousness, and then the nervousness becomes I want to eat something. If I eat too much, then you know what, all my training and exercise routines are down the tubes for that particular moment. They're not all together, but it starts that negative process off. So every day, and during the day, the start of the day, the end of the day, just think about how you're feeling, being aware of your emotions and where it's coming from. We can identify where those fears or opportunities are coming from, then it helps us be more logical and rational in the way we approach our daily work. Sometimes I ask people to put this on a balloon and write down how they're feeling on a balloon just to capture it. Psychologists love things when you write stuff down to capture that thought that's buzzing around in your head all the time. So put it on a balloon, write it down, and it's there, you've caught it. Time out for a second or two. A good thing that I often talk about when I've worked with thousands of children, pupils at school and staff, is I talk about, finding that best part of yourself. What is it about your qualities and achievement? What makes you brilliant? And I think it's a really good process to do this, because a lot of times in life we will probably, somebody gives a compliment, we'll probably push it away and say, you know what, no, I don't deserve that, that's not me, no, it can't be. And I think we're equally keen, if somebody says something negative, to magnify it up, which isn't very helpful for us. So I just want to spend a moment now thinking about your qualities and your achievements. What makes you, as it said in the book here, achievement unlocked? What are you good at? Yeah? And for me, I like being creative. I mean, accountancy stinks at times. I failed my maths 3 times, I eventually got it because that's what I do. But I look at some of the qualities I've got. So I think I'm quite creative. The quality I like to exercise, a good quality, that motivation to exercise. And it's once you start thinking about all the good things you do, what you're good at, it actually, by that process, stops you thinking about all the things you think, you perceive you're bad at. So I want you to spend a moment or two just thinking about the stuff that you're good at. If you're with somebody else, why don't you give them a compliment? And then they can give you a compliment and you can thank each other. And I've seen this work very powerfully in schools with teachers, and sometimes teachers cry for all the right reasons. That it's a relief that somebody didn't think anything bad of them, they actually thought some good things about them. Okay, another way of doing it, I read this in the paper at the start of the year. It says get a jar, and every day put all the good things that happen to you in that jar. At the end of the year, undo the jar and look at all the good things that have happened to you. I think in principle that's good. The practice is, today's society, we don't want to defer gratification too long. So something like this, it'd be something you can do at starting off on a daily basis. Get some post-it notes, write on the good thing that happens to you. Anybody else can say good things about themselves or other people they've seen. At the end of the day, as a family, take them out and look at all the good stuff. If that becomes boring, because I'll talk about routines in a minute, and routines are great, but they need to change at some point. If it becomes boring, change the routine, do it every week. Don't lose it, but it's a really good exercise, a very simple exercise that you can do. And which superhero are you? Do you know what? I'll tell you something really fascinating. That you might not think you're a superhero, but I guarantee there's somebody in the world who thinks you are. Guarantee it. You're just got to find who they are. Lots of opportunities here to talk about fears and opportunities. I just want to do a little more detail for you now. Is it fear we're living in now, or is it actually an opportunity? At some point, this unknown situation will become known. It will end, we'll get through it. Yeah? And there's a pressure to set an example to other people, to lead from the front, and that's true, but you can only set an example, one behaviour at a time. So you develop your behaviours that are modelling for calmness, for being assured, for being confident, for listening to other people, for taking their viewpoints in place, for being decisive and also being reflective. And that should hopefully come out through this presentation anyway. Distraction. Okay, distraction is important. When I went through a series of panic attacks, what I found sometimes was, this was before the medication, was that when I was distracted, they weren't quite as severe and they didn't last as long. And for example, I'd go out for a meal with a friend of mine and would have a talk, and I'd almost forget about what was bugging me on my stress and my panic attacks. And as soon as I came back, sat on my own, sat in a chair, boom, it sort of happened. It was almost 6 seconds, sit down, boom, happened. So distraction is a good thing, and distraction in this current lockdown climate could be something to watch some TV, it could be to play some games, and that's great. But distraction, if you do too much for it, guess what? It doesn't become a distraction, it becomes the main focus. So I think distraction of doing something that's nice is great, but if you're doing it all the time without structure, I think you'll get into sort of challenging situations which won't be helpful for you. Behaviours might manifest themselves that are not leading behaviours. So I think structure is important, and I think distractions have a place to play in that. But structure and routines every day, getting up, if you're a man, having a shave, getting dressed, having breakfast, doing some work, doing some exercise, contrasting activities. The national curriculum's a great one because we have the maths and English at the start. Then we have some other serious subjects that are very detail-led. In the afternoon, we tend to go a lot lighter, and it could be PE, it could be art, it could be something that's not detail-led. It's not exclusively the case, but I find a lot of schools I've visited over the years, and I've been to 1,500 of them, the afternoon is more of a gentler, a different sort of engagement than the start of the day. And I think that could be the emphasis within this corona lockdown period now, that we do not the heavy stuff, but the more detailed stuff early on, and work towards the stuff that's really fun and that's engaging. I think it's a good example there of art and crafts in the afternoon is a good way to start. But again, going back to what I said about routines, do it for a while and then mix it up a little bit. I saw something on TV the other day about families living in closed spaces, and unfortunately some families live in 1 or 2 rooms, and it can feel very pressurised. And there's all these talking about routines and structure and stuff. Yeah, but you don't live in this 1 or 2 rooms, Ross. I get that. I do get it. And some advice I read recently as well was that if you've only got 1 room, you can have a corner where you go in that corner and nobody interrupts you in that corner. If you want to read a book or look at the wall or with your iPad, that's your space. There might be any physical barriers around the back of you so people can see you, but they know not to go in there with you. So I think it's very important to have that, what's called the escape room. There's an interesting thing I put on here, you won't be able to read it, but what's called a stress signature. So the people you live with, do they know when you get stressed? And what does your stress look like? And crucially, how do they soften that? How do they ameliorate it? So you might be living with somebody, a partner, and they might be talking a bit too much, then they might be argumentative, then they might be retracting their presence and going away from you. It could be that stress has caused those reactions, because that's maybe not the normal behaviour. So understanding that, not playing to the chimp paradox where you did this out of this, you did this out of this, that's not what it's about. It's about recognising when somebody's stressed and having those conversations of being non-judgmental, of saying, how can I help you, what's happened, do you want me to be with you, do you want me to go away, and just be facilitating rather than confrontational. We can do a lot more sessions on that, but it's such a big part when we're living in enclosed spaces. And the final statement here is, will we grow in this challenge of Corona? Will we just maintain who we are? Or will we reveal our flaws? And that is an underlying fear that a lot of people might have. What if they find out that I'm not this good dad, this good person, this good partner? What if they find out that I'm not this great kid? What if they find out I've got my frustrations and tempers and tantrums and frustrations and boredoms? And it's that fear of that unknown from that slide I talked about before that possibly that unnerves a lot of us at this particular time. I want to do a few questions with you. So these are rhetorical questions, and I don't want you to answer them out loud. Just think about them. Okay. Now I'll do this from memory. It might vary slightly from what's on here, but that's fine. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very chilled, 10 being very stressed, what number would you give yourself at the moment? Have a think about that. Could this Corona lockdown be an opportunity to grow, to develop, to strengthen yourself, to review your life? If we can't grow, can we maintain what we've got? Can we add a bit of curiosity on there, to be curious about what today holds, what tomorrow brings, how life is going to change once we're out of the Corona lockdown, the virus has gone away, as it will do. Can you imagine that scenario in the future? Can you be curious just one day at a time? Just for today. And then tomorrow, we'll deal with tomorrow when it comes. We won't worry about yesterday, won't worry about tomorrow, we'll just deal with today. Can you do that? Here's a question for you. What will happen if we focus on our negative fears all the time? I reveal as a person I shouldn't be, and I'm not good enough, and I'm always nervous, and I can't demonstrate good behaviours, and I'm a gibbering wreck. What happens if we focus on all that stuff all the time? And when we focus on these negative things, we exclude the positive options. So it's like a downhill track that's going the wrong direction, it's going to crash at the bottom. Yeah, just think about that for a second. Let's imagine now, a nice question. The crisis is over and you've come through it. Not just unscathed, you've come through it as a better person with so many different things that you've done as a partner, as a leader, as a parent, as a person on your own perhaps. Many people will be on their own, like myself in this coronavirus lockdown. How much will you have proved you've changed? Will you just confirm what you already knew, that you've got a lot of good stuff about you? And you celebrate it more, and you recognise it more, and you give yourself a big pat on the back. How will you feel when it's all over? Look in that mirror. What's one thing you can do right now to lower that fear, that stress score that we said at the start, between 1 and 10? What's one thing you can do now? The chocolate activity. Recognise those fears that are bubbling around. Think about those pathways in our brain we need to work on. Is it just helping out with the dishes? Is it just working with somebody rather than against them? What's the one thing you can do? And when you thought about that, how's your stress score now? Has it gone down a little bit? I'd like to think so. So, opportunities and fears. Teach the principle, for every fear, there is an opportunity. Every fear you think about, there's an opportunity. It starts with being aware of how you feel. So we did the chocolate exercise, we just capture ourselves to start us off, and then we think about our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviours. And then it's, if you feel a certain way, why are we feeling that way? What's created that? And what are you going to do about it? Yeah? Are you going to jump out of your car and start remonstrating with people in this traffic jam? Or are you going to phone your boss up and have a quick chat and have a look at the world and be enjoyable of it? And we call this react to respond. It's a great way in terms of, you know, our principles here and practices. Do you react to something without thinking? Do you respond after some thought? And I suggest the latter. So red react is not good, green respond is so much better. Like a helicopter looking down, rather than jumping in there straight away, looking at what's happening and then resolving it in your mind and then resolving it in practice. And write down your opportunities for this corona lockdown. You'd be surprised that you might actually run out of paper. There are so many opportunities. And one final thing, and I say this to the children I work with, but I also say it to the staff because it's so relevant and pertinent. Every day, write down 3 things that went well today, your today result, okay? And write them down before you go to bed, put them in a notebook, and then just before you go to sleep, write down 3 things that are going to go well tomorrow, your tomorrow promise. So today result, 3 things that went well, tomorrow promise, 3 things that are going to go well. And there's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system that looking for positive outcomes. Yeah. So if you're going to buy a BMW, when you're out in the car next, when the lockdown finishes, you'll see lots more BMWs because your mind's focusing on it. So it's very important to give that mind something positive to focus on. Hence the today result, tomorrow promise. And if we're talking, that's a great start. And I can talk all day long, as you probably guessed. And talking is a bit part distraction, but it's also somebody giving you another perspective on something. But my one key tip in here is this. If you're talking, let the person talk. And if you're listening, listen non-judgmentally. Don't put a viewpoint on it, just listen without judgment. Because if you can do that, people will talk to you more and they reveal more about their inner fears, which then you might be able to help them with. So there's 2 key essences here. Let people talk. Don't listen to interrupt them. But when you're listening, don't be judgmental. Crucial points, and I'll go through that again with you. So think positive, talk positive, feel positive. It'll happen without even working at it. Once we get these things in place, it'll be an automatic behaviour. Thanks for listening. Just to remind you, email at ross@rossmacwilliam.com. We've got a webinar today, 24th of March at 2 p.m. and one at 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Give me your opinions. Thanks very much. I'm just going to walk around now and switch the camera.